MyFantasySportsTalk.com.
Welcome back, my fantasy podcast piece. Man, I missed you, and we're back just in time to spread the holiday cheer and joy. Myself, Brandon Reed, my co-host Dan Shalk, missed you guys, but we've been really busy. So much going on. Dan got married at the holidays. We had an Orlando trip, just so much going on. We got to saw a lot of great basketball over the Thanksgiving holiday, Dan. Now here we are at Christmas time, so just so much going on right now in the sports world and just in life in general.
Yeah, it's been a little crazy. I'm glad we can get together and finally do a show since our little Florida extravaganza. But yeah, crazy time of year in both of our households, it sounds like. And I'm glad that we can etch out a little time and do the podcast again. But not only that, but we have a pretty cool guest that's going to join us. So
Fran Fraschilla.
Fran, I'm so sorry, Brandon. Fran just called me. I just got off the phone. He had a meeting run late, so I had to book a different one. So Fran will he'll be on next time. Right?
Next time, okay.
Yeah. But this one's even better. This one is Damian Parson of the Damian and Deremy show, or Deremy and Damian show. I don't know. It's a great show. I've caught it a few times, and I'm definitely going to catch it every week because I don't know if you listened to their last one. They gave us a nice shout out. But it was definitely a great podcast, a great show, talking NFL, and they do a great job over there.
Yep, we're going to enjoy this one and get to promote some other guys' work who do a great job. I did catch some of their shows, and they break down clips very well. So very knowledgeable when it comes to NFL. So we're going to enjoy that. I myself am very knowledgeable when it comes to NFL fantasy because look who's in the championship game again. And guess who's not?
Well, if you talked to me yesterday, I was in the championship game. So let's go with that. How about that?
Yeah,
that's for another show. That's for another show.
You knew you weren't. Yeah, you got beat by who? Guess who beat the Dan Shalk? Our buddy Nick Pertins. Oh,
yeah. I mean, if it's anybody, I'm glad it's the Pertins, our number one fans. I could take a loss to him, and it's just there's been drama around our fantasy league. I mean, we'll catch the next show because we're gonna go and dive right into it. But
the mailbag show, we'll talk. We got a mailbag question from Nick. We're gonna talk about the mailbag show, so we'll get into all that. But what just makes it more funny and even more satisfying to me is because y'all made an early season trade and everybody said you fleeced Nick Pertins. And and the difference in the game, one of the players in the trade happened to be Kenyon Drake, which he ended up scoring not much, but the difference in your semifinal matchup. This is hilarious to me. It's just hilarious. So
that was painful. Thanks.
I bet. So, but we'll talk about that on the mailbag segment show. So check that out. December fantasy finals mailbag segment show, I guess. So let's bring in the man Damian Parsons and talk to him of the Damian and Deremy show. So would love talking and promoting other guys. We talked to Brendan Griffin before. We need to get him on the show again soon, Dan, see what he's up to, see what the high flyer's up to.
Yeah, High Flyer BG. He's doing big things. I hear from him every once in a while on social media. It looks like he's got some big things in the works. So yeah, we'll definitely have to have him again. And I mean, that's what we do occasionally. We have some great guests. Ryan Thomas, I guess we can call him a guest. I don't know. He pays us to join, so we just allow him to come on for $5, $10, right? Oh, I haven't been sharing that with you. That I've been pocketing and all that. Brandon, forgot to tell you.
Man. Okay. Well, I'm gonna do some side negotiations with Ryan then. See what he can offer me. See if he can give me some Bills tickets.
I'm here, guys.
There we go.
Damian's here.
Dame Dollar. What's going on, bro?
Hey, what's up, man? Appreciate you guys having me on, man.
No problem. We've been looking forward to it. I know you've been conversating with Dan over the last month or so, and I know I like what you guys do over there too. So we can collaborate and make a hell of a NFL podcast here tonight.
Hey, let's do it, man. I'm all for that. I'm all for it, man.
I don't know if you've been catching some of the conversation Dan and I had, but so I'm in the championship of our MFST Fantasy Football League. Dan was in the other semifinal. So I don't know if you caught too much of that Monday night game, but the whole game came down to basically, in Dan's season, came down to that pick 2 of the Panthers. Yeah. So ESPN gave 3 points for the pick 2 to the Carolina Panthers defense, which Dan was playing. It was an amazing way to finish the season. So Dan was playing Drew Brees against the Carolina Panthers of the guy that was playing the other semifinal. So that was the matchup, and that's what it came down to. So ESPN gave the Carolina Panthers defense at 3 points for that pick 2, and then took it away for some mysterious reason, which had Dan winning by half a point to go to the MFST championship game. Well, ESPN did finally correct it. So, but it was just an amazing way to have a semifinal come down to, and that's what it came down. It's unbelievable that it even came down to those two players, Drew Brees versus the Carolina Panthers defense, and that was a hell of a battle that Dan came up a little bit short on. So,
hey, you were just a smidge close. You were close, Dan. You were close, man.
It was painful. I mean, I knew ESPN made a mistake with the scoring error, but you see yourself as the winner and in that championship game, and it's like, yeah, I got it. And then to have it taken away, it felt like my Christmas presents were taken away from underneath the Christmas tree. It was tough, but I'm confident that my podcast mates will probably win. So at least it's given MFST a little boost, I guess. We can look at it like that.
Here's another part of the backstory real quick, Damian, is that in year 1 of the MFST Fantasy Football League, 2 years ago now, I guess, Dan did the same thing. He snuck in at the last second by an ESPN stat correction. He actually lost the game when the game was over and then had an ESPN stat correction, which propelled him like 2-3 days later. It was like on a Tuesday or Wednesday into the championship game, which he faced me and lost to. So I wasn't scared either. History says I wasn't scared.
Hey, history's on your side, man. I must say though, like in the league I am in, I run the league myself, and last year I actually won the league and went to the finals. I'm actually back in the finals against this exact same opponent that I had last year. Last week I literally won by 3 points. Neither of us cracked 100 points because our teams were completely the only reason I truly won is because Keenan Allen got hurt. If Keenan Allen didn't get hurt, if he stayed healthy that whole game, I would have lost easily. But it was on my side. It was my time to go to the finals yet again. So I had to make a couple waiver wire transactions to try and grab a couple guys to try and make that run, man.
Well, what happens like that. You talk about your team not cracking 100, but last week was actually a down week for scoring wise in the NFL. There just wasn't as many touchdowns as there normally is. And so that's going to affect everybody's fantasy, playoffs and teams. So some weeks are like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, the guy I'm facing off with, he has Derrick Henry. So I'm hoping that he does not repeat the past 2 weeks of success. I don't need that again. I don't need to see that this Saturday afternoon.
Well, surely he's due for a little bit of a letdown, but that's what I said a few weeks ago about Derrick Henry. This is the time of year last year when he turned it up. He kind of cruised. Then he had a really good, solid last month, and that's really what I think convinced the Tennessee Titans that they can let DeMarco Murray go, is because it looks like they had a stud in Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. That's exactly what happened, and hopefully, I mean, if they are able to make it to the playoffs, or even in next week, if he wants to continue that role, I'm fine with that. Just not this week.
So talk about you guys' show a little bit and your partner. It's the Damian and Deremy show. So talk a little bit about that and how the folks can find you.
Well, you can definitely find us we are on Stitcher. We are on iTunes. We use the app Anchor, which is a great app, by the way. It's a really, really easy app to use. We're just two guys that love football. We both played growing up, especially all through high school. Former running back myself, he was a former offensive linemen. That's why if you listen to the show, when we talk about offensive linemen, he does not call them the big uglies. He calls them the big sexies, because that is his thing. So yeah, we love the game. We're both historians, but he is a little bit more of a historian than I am. Like, he can rattle off things from 1957 when neither one of us were born. So he's a little bit more extensive than I am. But he pretty much calls me the coach, where I know every position, all of those things, and we love the game. So we watch a lot of film. I have Sunday tickets, so I see everything pretty much. I make sure of that on Sundays, that I can tune into everything and keep my Game Pass so I can go back and watch film. But yeah, have a lot of fun. So definitely check us out. iTunes, Anchor, Stitcher, and we're on Facebook. Facebook, The Damian Deremy Show. We're on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, DP_NFL. Of course, Thursday, if you saw the Stephen A. Smith whole situation go viral, didn't expect that to happen, but I'll take it.
But you mentioned the lineman calling himself the big sexy. If you're a running back, you can let those big guys call themselves anything they want, because
exactly.
they help you succeed. So, and then also, you guys are starting something new, the On the Clock podcast.
Yes, sir. We are huge NFL draft guys, and that's my favorite time of the year. I was in Dallas last year. I was able to make it into Jerry's World, into the huge stadium. That's a beautiful, beautiful stadium. I was there all 3 rounds, for all 3 days. Matter of fact, I was there when Baker Mayfield went number 1, and everyone outside and inside were losing their minds. The atmosphere is amazing at the NFL draft. Our plan is to actually go to Lucas Oil Stadium this year in Indianapolis. We're trying to get to the Combine, and then, of course, hit up Nashville for the NFL draft. So yeah, that is our new draft podcast, On the Clock, with Damian Deremy.
Well, you might have to incorporate our own Dan Schalk into that, because he's definitely a draft guru as well. Breaks down during draft time. Dan breaks down pretty much every major prospect. How many prospect profiles did you have this, Dan? I mean, it was upwards of like 200, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I was in the 230s last year, and Damian, I don't know if you've ever seen my work, but yeah, I mean, I do scouting reports and draft profiles on all the NFL draft prospects, so I'm big into it. Game film is kind of a hobby of mine, just watching it. So I'm with you there. I completely understand where you're coming from. Of the NFL draft being such an exciting time, and I've never been live like you were last year, but I can only imagine how that atmosphere is, and yeah, I'm a definite draft enthusiast, and I'm inviting myself onto your On the Clock podcast whenever you want, because I just love talking draft and breaking down film, talking prospects, and kind of my big thing is, I'll watch a guy and I love to comp him. I love comping people.
Oh, yeah.
Comping prospects to who I think they can be, and watching those guys' careers since I've really been doing it hard the last few years, watching them kind of unfold. Like our boy Brandon Reed's crush this year is Patrick Mahomes, and that's a guy that I raved about when he was coming out a couple years ago. So it's fun to kind of see how they take off once you scout them the way we probably both do.
Yes, sir. And trust me, you are definitely welcome anytime, man. I have seen your work. You do great work, by the way. I love you. I love your breakdowns. Continue to keep it up, man. I'm going to be tuned into your scouting reports. I'll have my scouting reports coming out as well via couchrider.net. The Couchrider Report, that is another affiliate that I work with closely. But yeah, man, you can come on anytime, man. The plan is to kick it off right before the college football playoffs. We're going to break down the playoffs, talk about the big prospects and even sleeper prospects in those games, so people can keep their eyes out for. So yeah, we're going to be all over that, and after that, it's all guns blazing after that, man.
Awesome, love it.
Yeah, Dan has a little bit in common with your partner Deremy then in that case, because he's a bit of a historian too, because he'll comp a guy that played 1976. I'm like, who the hell is that?
I don't know how you do it, man, but hey, kudos to you.
I got to take your word for it. I mean, the NFL wasn't even on TV back when these guys were playing these compliments. Where'd you find that film? But yeah, that'll be hot. I know Dan is sorry about missing that trip to Jerry World too. I know you're all kinds of envious and jealous. You check out Dan's wall behind him on the podcast, Damian. It's stuff with Dallas Cowboys fans. That is his team. That is his love.
Gotcha. Okay, I see. Yeah, listen, that is an amazing stadium, man, and I think at the draft when I was there, the craziest fan base, I had to give it to the Raiders. The Raiders fan base they came in droves and they were painted out black and silver. They were yelling, and the only other fan base I say that rivaled them, I would say would be I think it was the Chargers. Chargers came deep into Dallas, and it was an amazing experience. And like I said, this going to Nashville, Nashville is beautiful. My wife's been. I've never been to Nashville, so I heard it's beautiful. So I'm planning on it, which we want to hit up a couple. We want to pick out a specific pub or bar and try to set up a remote location if we can to kind of get our own live breakdown as the picks are in. Just kind of break down what we think, if it's a good fit, so forth and so on.
That would be a hot idea. We did that. It was Dylan Davis Trotto, writer for My Fantasy Sports Talk, that did that. I believe this past year, didn't he, Dan?
Yeah. For the NFL draft, he was at a bar this past year, two years ago. But he did the show from a bar, and it was pretty cool just to get all the fans' perspective as the picks go down. And especially he's in Jets country, so anytime the Jets fan base is. They always seem to hate their draft picks, so it's always good to see that reaction right away.
Of course. They never liked their draft pick. When I was there in Dallas, it was mixed reactions when Sam Darnold pick was in. I know a lot of people out there, they were happy. They were like, okay, we finally got our quarterback. And after week 15, watching him last Saturday versus the Texans, he gave them some reasons to be happy and be excited about. And I like what I saw from him versus that Texans defense. Accuracy, poise, mobility, arm strength, ball placement, everything that he was doing in that game with limited weapons. Literally, the only true weapon he had was Robbie Anderson. Because Quincy Newell didn't play, Jermaine Kearse was null and void in that game as well. So I like what I see from Sam. Keep an eye on him.
Let me ask you something, Damian. You talked about the Raiders fan base being rabid, and it always has been. The black hole, and just, man, they've always been wild for years and decades now. So how do you think that's going to translate when they actually do move to Vegas? Do you think it's still going to be that rabid, or you think the Vegas fans are going to be more nonchalant and maybe part-time fans with them?
It's tough, man. With Vegas, I kind of look at Vegas the same way I looked at the move with the Chargers going to LA. Those fans, I do feel like those fans would be a little fair weathery. If they continue this slide. Now, granted, we all know that with the trades of Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper, John Gruden has 3 first-round picks. So
I think it's a purposeful rebuild. I mean, I think they're purposely tanking right now.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if they can, somehow right now that the Niners are. It is the Cardinals, I believe, that are in the number 1 spot. If they can somehow get within these last 2 weeks, get that number 1 spot from the Cardinals, I'm looking at Nick Bosa as that guy. He needs to bring in that splash guy, that guy with that swagger, that flavor to put butts in the seats. And Joey Bosa's doing his thing over there for the Chargers, so Nick Bosa can definitely come in and boost John Gruden. His whole quote, finding good pass rushers are very hard to find.
Yep, definitely. And I think he's also going to be looking for a quarterback via trade or maybe a later round pick. But I don't think Derek Carr is going to be his guy.
No, I don't think so either.
So let's just talk about fantasy real briefly this year for you, Damian. What's kind of surprised you? What has been bust for you just overall? I mean, the season's pretty much over as far as fantasy goes. You're not making any moves or trades at this point. But what's just kind of been your reaction to the fantasy football season this year?
It's been fun. The league that I'm in, it was a knockdown, drag out type of season. Only 2 teams over 10 wins. Everyone else is just literally just week to week. You were unsure. You look at the projection. Oh man, I got a 40-point projected win. Like this is going to be easy. And games kick off on Sunday, and by Sunday night you're like, okay. So I mean, I only have a 5-point lead. Monday Night Football, he has 2 players left. So it's been a very tough season trying to figure out the best lineups, but it's been fun. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I had to make a couple moves, made a couple trades, being able to get people like guys like Joe Mixon, David Njoku, James White, Alshon Jeffrey, and a couple other guys. I would say the bust for me, I was high on the Denver running back, not named Philip Lindsay. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Royce Freeman. Because I was looking at him, and my comp for him was, coming into the draft, I was like, he could possibly have a Kareem Hunt type of rookie year, somewhat. Kareem Hunt led the league in rushing, but have that type of splash in the middle of the rounds, third, fourth, fifth round, somewhere in there. And I drafted him, and then after the first 2 weeks, I saw how it was kind of leaning towards Phil Lindsay, so I went ahead and make that move and grabbed him out of the waivers before anybody else could. I also grabbed Patrick Mahomes, who I use as a trade piece to get some other players too. So it's been a fun season, man. It's been a fun season, and hopefully I can cap it off with another championship.
So you mentioned Joe Mixon and making a trade for him, and that to me is where my season got propelled, and I really was very confident in my chances this year because I had the number 1 pick. So obviously I took Todd Gurley, and that's a home run. But my strategy this year was to go heavy on running backs because I typically don't, and I saw Dan Chalk win a championship by that last year. Just stacking really good running backs. So Joe Mixon fell to me at 28 when I came back and picked again in the second round, and I was ecstatic because I had my 2 running backs, and I felt like Joe Mixon was going to be a difference maker. He had a little bit of injury setback this year, but overall he's been solid and very good. And in our particular league, he's in the top, I would say, 15 overall in total points outside of quarterbacks for fantasy points. So that, and along with my 3rd pick was Tyreek Hill, who's been really impressive, especially with a new quarterback. So, I've been very high on Joe Mixon. I really think that's where my season turned around when those guys let Joe Mixon fall to me at 28. So I started off the first 2 rounds with Todd Gurley and Joe Mixon.
Yeah, the Joe Mixon pick was huge. That trade was huge for me because I was struggling at the running back spot, and I was able to actually use Pat Mahomes and to get Joe Mixon. I believe it was Joe Mixon, Carson Wentz, and one more other player. And Joe Mixon, it's crazy, looking at how he's performed over the last couple of weeks without Andy Dalton. They've been, with Jeff Driscoll, they've had to feed him and use him as the workhorse that he should have been even with Andy Dalton. And, of course, I benefit from it, him being on my fantasy team. So I appreciate it. Continue to feed him even this Sunday versus the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just looking at the stats, and it popped up that he is questionable now, the questionable tag, but I don't think it's anything serious. Just a wrist issue, but I think that's just maintenance. He doesn't really have any threat of not playing, I don't think, but we'll see. So if you had to name maybe a fantasy bust this year, who might you point out as being a complete fantasy bust overall outside of, you mentioned Royce Freeman or Lindsey, but anybody else just overall that maybe wasn't on your team that you think, man, they just had a horrible fantasy season compared to where they were drafted?
Man, let's see. I could easily go with Le'Veon Bell because he didn't play a single snap this year. But I would say David Johnson. In another league, I took him, and I regretted it. I took him over Ezekiel Elliott at number 3. And it was a tough decision because I was looking at the fact that, Zeke, knowing that Dak Prescott he's a solid quarterback, but of course the receivers were young, had bringing in Michael Gallup as a second, third round pick, the rookie. He has potential, but of course you didn't know what he was going to be able to do in that offense. And of course Cole Beasley, Des Bryant. I was like, man, I don't know about Zeke. I know he's going to see a lot of stacked boxes, but so I went with David Johnson, and the talent around him is porous, man.
They can't get in the end zone. That's the biggest problem.
Offensive line's bad. Of course, you had Sam Bradford starting out the season at first. Then of course Josh Rosen. You have Larry Fitz at receiver, but Ricky Seals-Jones is a solid, okay tight end, but he hasn't proven much I think he has the potential to prove to be a pretty good pass catcher in this league. But definitely, to me, is David Johnson just where he's. And I know he was top 4, top 5 in most leagues, PPR or standard. Because he was a touchdown machine when he was healthy 2 seasons ago. So yeah, I got to go with David Johnson on that one.
I 100% agree, and that's what I've been preaching to Dan Schalk all year. Dan Schalk made a big trade for David Johnson, to the guy who beat him in the semifinals. But I've been preaching that to Dan Schalk all year because the team just sucks, man. They just suck. And so I looked at our league. He is 12th as far as running backs go in our league, behind James White. So, Dan, are you ready to admit that David Johnson's been a fantasy bust this year?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, if you drafted him that high, yes.
Everybody was. Everybody. He's like
well,
Dan.
So I made a trade for him. And if you still look at my trade, I mean, I gave up Kenyon Drake and Doug Martin. So I'm okay with the move that I made. But yes, you're drafting him top 3 most likely. So yeah, he was bust worthy for that. The volume was always there. It just the production wasn't in
getting the end zone.
Yep.
And funny thing about it is now Kenyon Drake and Doug Martin will be seeing you in the championship game, buddy. Damian, how about Christian McCaffrey? He's been kind of a pleasant surprise. I mean, I thought everybody thought he would probably have a good season, top 8 or 10 numbers, but he currently ranks number 3 in running backs in our league.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. Going back to our fantasy draft, I'm the commissioner. I run the league, so of course the order was randomized. I let it do random order, and somehow I got lucky number 12, which is only 12 teams in our league. So I was a little distraught at first. I was like, man, so I got to figure this thing out. How do I want to work my plan? And I was so stuck on the 12th pick. Literally, I could have had Christian McCaffrey and Michael Thomas back-to-back picks. I didn't even look at I was so frustrated. I didn't even look at the board clear enough with a clear mind. Completely bypassed Christian McCaffrey. And it is a full PPR league that I run. And I drafted Dalvin Cook and Michael Thomas. But I could have had Michael Thomas and Christian McCaffrey. So my best friend, Marvin, he ended up making a trade with another guy in our league, and he got Christian McCaffrey. And somehow he made another trade and got Alvin Kamara. And has both of those. But the crazy thing about it is he lost in the playoffs last week, even with those 2 studs, because he allowed the receiver spot to be weakened by his trades. So it all comes full circle, definitely.
It's a balancing act. And that, one thing that I really took a hit on this year on my fantasy team is tight end. I started out with Greg Olsen. I really wanted a top 5 tight end and that was kind of aggressive for me because I always let the tight end. I just don't think about the tight end position. I never go after those top guys. And I usually survive. And also I've really kind of survived without even Greg Olsen. Been patchworking a little bit of Jesse James and the guy from Seattle. Nick
Bennett.
No, the other one.
It wasn't even that good. It
hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out. So now we're talking, and everybody's making fun of me because I'm starting the only tight end that Tennessee Titans have on their roster now, the Ferkser.
Yes.
He's been doing good up until last week. He didn't have a catch, but I expect him to turn around. But yeah, just the tight end position's just always been kind of a mystery and a nuance for me. But so let's talk real NFL real quick. Who is your team, by the way?
I am a Patriots fan.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I'm a Patriots fan.
I got mad respect. I have man crushes on Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. If Bill Belichick could be my father, I would do it. And I'm with you there. I'm not a Patriots fan, but I just respect the process and respect what they do week in, week out, although these last 2 weeks might not agree with us.
Yeah, last 2 weeks have been rough. And a lot of people, who follow me and follow the show know that I am an objective fan. So I'll hold anybody on the team accountable, no matter if it's Tom Brady, no matter if it's Julian, whoever it is. I'm not, I hear a lot of the Patriots fans, and Bill I trust. And one thing I've always, criticized Bill for is lack or his inability to draft well. Bill takes too many chances in the draft. He's done it so many times, and it's bitten us. And when you look at this team, as you see when Tom Brady, when his talent, his arm strength, his age is kicking in, he's deteriorating, and he's 41 years old, as he should. He's 9 years away from 50, from half, come on, he should. So when he starts to die down and Gronk starts to die down, now you're starting to see that the talent elsewhere is just not good enough at times. Now I do believe Bill has a couple tricks up his sleeve. He is Yoda. He is that mastermind. So I think he has a couple tricks up his sleeve if they can close up these next two games and honestly, this will be the first time in a long time the Patriots were in the wild card.
So you said you're an objective fan, which I love. I want to hear that because I really think that the Patriots are pretenders this year. They're not that elite team. I don't see them getting to the Super Bowl. I really don't. I don't see them getting through Kansas City or San Diego, maybe not even Houston or Pittsburgh at this point. I don't see that something has just not been right about them this year. And I do think you are seeing a slight decline from Tom Brady. But how do you feel? Are you seriously got Super Bowl aspirations this year? Is it more of a wish and a hope, or do you? What do you feel? Do you think they're more contenders or pretenders?
When I look at the team and just where they are right now, I look at them as it's inconsistent. I look at them as a pretending contender. They are a pretender right now, but they have the ability to be a contender. Because with me, Tom Brady, I will always give him the shadow of a doubt that any given Sunday, he can strap it up. Just last week against the Dolphins, he was on his game. He was over 300 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Gronk looked like he was almost back to his normal self. And then you fast forward a week later in Pittsburgh, 15 penalties, I believe 7 or 9 pre-snap penalties, setting the offense back. Couple defensive penalties. The refs were playing it a little tight, a little close to the vest. But as a Patriot fan, I'm not going to complain about the refs. I've seen them kind of look the other way for us a few times, so I won't even, I'll be honest about it. But I look at this team. Like I said, just the talent right now. When you look at the rosters, Houston's more talented. Kansas City is more talented. Pittsburgh's more talented. I will even say the Colts are almost on the same plateau talent-wise. Offensive line they have a legit offensive line now. T.Y. Hilton, a true number 1 receiver who can make plays on all 3 levels. Eric Ebron has about 11 or 12 touchdowns when we thought he was a complete bust from his days in Detroit, and you put him with Andrew Luck, and he's able to do the things he's done this season. He's still dropping passes, but he's making plays. So Marlon Mack, Nyheim Hines as well. So when I look at the Patriots team, they're pretenders right now. They're going to be true. They're truly going to be Brady or bust. The defense can play well in spurts, but the lack of athletic ability in the front 7, not being able to cover tight ends and running backs out of the backfield. You see a ton of crossing patterns teams are running against us, and the lack of a pass rush. Trey Flowers is truly our best defender. But when you look at the rest of the D-line, it's not much else to build upon. So, yeah, I'm with you. The one team, it's crazy. Even though we lost to the Steelers last week, I still don't respect them as a fan. I still don't. They just can't. They came off 3 straight losses and, 15 penalties by us, and they still barely squeaked it out.
They just lost to Oakland, too.
Yeah, that was a shocker, too. I didn't see that coming. I thought they would have blown Oakland out, but they put a whooping on us in all facets of the game, running the ball. That's why I say I'm hoping Bill Belichick has a couple tricks up his sleeve, but I'm with you wholeheartedly. This is a pretending team at the moment. Unless Tom Brady goes 2007 and in the last couple weeks and heading to the playoffs, I don't see us making the Super Bowl.
Well, it's just that time of year in the NFL where it's so hard to predict. You can look at myself and Dan's NFL picks each week for the last 2-3 weeks and tell that we have been falling off after winning at least 10 games the first, 9-10 weeks of the season. The last couple of weeks have been rough for us because it's been so hard to predict. It's just that time of the year in the NFL. People are banged up. You may lose a little bit of focus. So, but I think I'm kind of agreeing with you as far as the Patriots go. You can't count out Tom Brady and Bill Belichick Belichick, but I don't think they can outscore Kansas City or Los Angeles, the Chargers. If it comes down to a matchup with the Chiefs or Chargers, I don't think New England can outscore them in a playoff game.
The Chargers are just so dangerous, man. They're a dangerous team. And that's the type of team, press man coverage. That's what you want to do against the Patriots, because we've always had those smaller receivers, Edelman, Dola, Welker, Deion Branch. You want to get in their face. You want to force them to. Now, granted, Edelman's 32 years old, so he doesn't have the exact same type of explosiveness and juice that he had, a couple years ago. But when you look at it right now, it's Josh Gordon. You want to get him downfield. I mean, you have Philip Dorsett, but they're not really giving him. He was our leading receiver the first couple of weeks until Edelman and Gordon came in. So
Cordero Patterson too just shows flashes every once.
I want to see more. I want to see more of Cordero. He's give credit to the offensive to the receivers coach, the offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. They've been working extensively with him on his route tree and his ability to run better routes and create separation. And he's grown as a receiver. I give him that. And he has that physicality and the speed to make game-breaking plays, as you saw a couple weeks ago when he returned a kick return. I believe it was against the Bears, if I'm not mistaken.
He's always had that capability back from his Minnesota days. I drafted him as a rookie strictly as a kick returner when I was playing in a league where kick return yardage counted, and he was killing it. And so he's one of those rare players in fantasy in our league anyway that's listed as a running back or wide receiver.
Yes.
So very good to have on your team where you can plug him in anywhere you want to.
Yes, sir.
But before we let you go, let me get if you had to decide right now, week 16 in the NFL, who is making the Super Bowl? Who's your odds-on favorite?
I'm gonna go with the Saints. Even though the past 3 weeks the offense has not looked like themselves against Dallas, they didn't look. Dallas, completely strapped them up and kept them under wraps. Against Tampa Bay, they struggled for most of that game, but Tampa Bay kept giving Drew Brees opportunities, kept giving him chances. And even Monday night versus Carolina, the defense played well. But again, with Cam Newton's shoulder, who of course I know you guys know that he is being shut down for the season. That's what's per the reports due to the shoulder injury. They just couldn't put up enough points. But I've been looking at the Saints. Drew Brees, Michael Thomas. They need to find some consistency with wide receiver number 2 and 3. But having Kamara is like having another receiver on the field, and of course Mark Ingram.
Yes, don't forget Mark Ingram.
I will never forget Mark Ingram. Deuce. Mark Ingram is going to bring that power in the run game, and their defense. Just like last year, has done a great job for most of the season. They're holding teams under 15 points a game, which is extreme. These last, I think since week 10, I saw
you can't run on them. Christian McCaffrey found that out Monday night.
Todd Gurley found it out weeks ago. Every running back that's been seeing them, I think Zeke has had the most success, but it wasn't big plays. It was just steady production. Feeding him the ball, letting him get those ugly, dirty yards, those 2, 3, 4 yards per carry type of deal. But I'm looking at the Saints, man. I think the Saints will, especially having the number 1 seed. Any team that's trying to knock them off, you have to go into that Superdome in New Orleans. And right now, when I look at the best matchup for them, I would love to see the Kansas City Chiefs. I would love to see the Chiefs and Saints in the Super Bowl. Granted, I like to see my Patriots, but
sorry, you cut out there. So your AFC choice. Let me get to that.
AFC choice it's tough. I'm looking, right now. I want to say my Patriots, but I can't. There's no way I can say them right now. I'm sticking with the Chiefs. I'm going to stick with the Chiefs. Even without Kareem Hunt, and if it was Kareem Hunt, I probably would pick them to win the Super Bowl. In my opinion, if they still had Kareem Hunt, because he was that dominant of a running back, and on all phases, catching the ball, running between the tackles, pass protection, everything. He was able to do everything. And Pat Mahomes, the only thing I fear with the Chiefs is Andy Reid, and sometimes his mismanagement of the clock, and sometimes his play calling a little, he can get away from the run and try to get a little too cute. And we all know in December it's cold, and in Kansas City it can be snowy. You want to be able to run the ball, but they do have Damian Williams as well in that backfield.
So they had no business losing to the Titans last year, honestly.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was surprised they lost that game, but Derek, like we talked about earlier, Derrick Henry showed up and showed out big time. So I'm going Chiefs, man.
So we actually have the same exact Super Bowl prediction right now. I'm going with Saints and the Chiefs. That's as of right now, Week 16. But Dan, you got anything else for Dame before we let him go?
Well, the Chiefs are not going to make the Super Bowl, so sorry to burst your bubbles there. I'm going the Patriots. I'm Patriots, Saints. I'm with you on the Saints, but that's my Super Bowl. Just in case you want to know, Brandon, because your Chiefs, it's not Andy Reid. He crumbles in the postseason. So although they have Pat Mahomes, that Kareem Hunt injury or not injury, well, whatever he did, so Kareem Hunt being gone, I think really hurts them for the reasons that you said. But no, I mean that's who I have, and then obviously we're probably going to be hearing from Damian again with NFL draft coming on, and so I'm looking forward to it, and now is our time to shine when it comes to game film and watching for the NFL draft. So I'll be touching base with you probably a lot more, Damian.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Do that. Let me know your schedule and everything, because like I said, once we get on the clock rolling, it's going to be a consistent thing week to week. I'm getting ready to go right now. I'm studying running backs because, of course, I am a former running back. That's my position, so I love it. I'm studying running backs and creating my top 10 list. And I'm going a little deeper than that as well. But definitely, I can't wait to have you on, Dan.
Well, appreciate it. Tell the folks on My Fantasy Podcast one more time, how do we get in touch with you? How do they watch the Damian and Deremy podcast?
Well, guys, you can find us on iTunes. Just search Damian and Deremy, of course, as well as On the Clock with Damian and Deremy. You can find us on Facebook at the Damian and Deremy Show. We'll have all the links on there as well. I am on Twitter, DP_NFL. We're on Stitcher. I think we're on it's Pod Chasers. We're on a lot of different podcast groups and hosting sites, but we are trying to go as far as we can. So as much support. We appreciate everybody. We appreciate you guys for letting me come on and rep our show and just talk with you guys, man. It's been fun.
No problem. Appreciate it. Sounds good. Damian Parsons, the Damian and Deremy Show. Check it out and check out the On the Clock podcast coming soon. So for my co-host, Dan Chalk, I am Brandon Reed. We'll see you next time. Check out the mailbag segment, the Week 16 final week, championship week of fantasy football playoffs. Mailbag segment show. Check that out and check you out next time, podcast peeps. Later. Peace.